Good afternoon, everyone. This is Kenny Jackson of the Mann Group. I'd like to welcome each of you to the 7 Steps to Manager Success webinar. Hope everyone's having a good Friday so far. And you got something good planned for the weekend. Again, we're glad you're able to make it today. And in just a minute, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Dan Mann. But before I do, I want to go over a couple of items. First, I want to make sure everyone can see the presentation properly before we get started. So you should see a picture of a blue sky, beautiful mountain scene. So if you got any issues, please let me know. Next, I want to make sure that you're able to find the chat section on the control panel. So on the control panel near the bottom, you should see the word chat. And if you'll click on this tab, it will open a dialog box, and you can use it to submit a question or offer any comments. And just so we don't have any background noise, we'll have everyone muted during the presentation. So if you've got a question that you'd like answered, please type it in the chat portion of the control panel, and we'll get to it at the end of the presentation. That's about all the instructions I've got for today. So again, we welcome you. And now I'd like to turn over to Dan, who, for those of you who do not know, is the owner and founder of the Mann Group. Dan, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Kenny. Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you're calling in from. I know we've got folks as far away as Anchorage, Alaska dialing in today, so for you going into the weekend. So we will keep it short. We have about 20 minutes of material for you with a 1-minute commercial at the end. So we're excited about this topic. We feel that this is a crucial area of opportunity improvement and profitability in a retail store. And it is the 7 secrets to manager success. We're very committed to believing that the store manager's single most important function in a retail store. And I want to make a case for that today and show you how your retail manager should be behaving. I want to begin by telling you a story. A few years ago, I was sitting at the breakfast table with my Uncle John. Uncle John's been a longtime personal and business mentor for me, very self-made, successful construction manager, and done quite a few things. And I was drinking a cup of coffee, leaning back in my chair, bemoaning how hard I had worked that week. I said, "Man, John, I really worked hard this week. This was a tough week." And without being sarcastic, John says, "Yeah, I remember the last day I worked hard." I paused and I said, "Excuse me?" He says, "I remember the last day I worked hard." And I said, "Well, what do you mean by that?" I was kind of curious as to that kind of a comment. He says, "Well, I believe it was July 15th, 1984. And I said, "Are you kidding me? That you can remember that?" I said, "Well, why don't you tell me the story?" He said, "Well, I was in Athens, Georgia. It was mid-July. It was very hot, and I was up on a roof of a construction project putting up shingles. And I had really been excited about my construction business, and this was my first 4-unit condominium to build. And so I was up there really excited, my shirt off, I had my shorts on, I was putting up shingles, worked hard all day long in the burning sun to put that roof on. And at the end of the day, which was the hard day I worked, I got down off the roof, got in my car, and drove back to my office. Now, this is prior to cell phones, and so John says he walked back into his office, and he saw that he had a dozen messages or so on his answering machine. So he pressed play, and the first message was at 8:30 in the morning. "John, this is your real estate agent. Give me a call right now." 8:45. "John, your banker. Listen, you got to call me right now. I got something for you." 9 o'clock, real estate agent again. "John, the clock is ticking. You got to call me right now. You're going to miss it." 9:15, banker. "John, call me or your real estate agent as quickly as you get this message. This is really important." A few more of those messages, and then there was silence until about 3:15, and the next message, "John, forget it. No need to call." What had happened during that day when John was putting shingles on the roof of his condominium was that the 25 acres that he'd had his eye on adjacent to that property in a prime location in downtown Athens near the University of Georgia came available, and the seller was very anxious to sell it at a good price. And John was prepared to buy it, but he was not in a position to hear the message, respond to it appropriately, and that opportunity then went to a competitor who took great advantage of it. John says the next morning he got up, put on khakis, a dress shirt, dress shoes, went into his office, and worked completely differently that day and that day forward than he'd ever worked before. I said to John, I said, "So how much money do you think you made in the years prior to 1984?" when you were still up on the roof putting shingles. He says, I probably made about $650,000 to $800,000 in that period of time. I said, what would you say you've made since then? He said, probably over $50 million. I thought, that sounds like a pretty good decision. You got to get off the roof if you're going to be successful. If you own a business today and you're listening to this message and you are on the roof doing the actual physical work of your business, it may mean that you've got a problem with your store manager. If you are a store manager today, you must find a way to get this work done by others for your benefit. The work of successful retail store management is getting off the roof and getting others to do work that they should probably be doing. And so with that in mind, we are going to offer you today what we believe are the 7 steps to manager success. This is going to be a great opportunity for you to, first of all, evaluate what you're doing currently, how your manager is performing, and see where the opportunities are to improve your performance. The 7 secrets to manager success. We're excited about this. We believe it's the secret to retail success. Your first step, setting the bar. You know, you've got to create the proper standard. What is the standard for performance? What are my expectations? And I've got a stopwatch here because it reminds me of a story. We've got a client up in Alaska called Skinny Raven. It's a running company, one of the best running companies in the United States. And one of their managers there, John Clark, is also a coach. My sons and I were up there last year visiting, and and John was working with my boys, who both are runners, actually run track, and he was working with them a little bit, doing some coaching. And he gave them an assignment. Says, I want you to run a mile, then we're going to do a 2-mile run, then we're going to do some 400s, and we're going to do some 200s. So my older son starts running this mile run, and you could see he was pacing himself because he knew he had a 2-mile run after the mile run. Then he had some 400s. So you see him pacing. So he really started slowing down. So Hank finished his first mile, and John pulled him to the side and said, Hank, you don't need practice running slow. You already know how to do that. What you got to work on is running at speed. I thought that was a great comment, and it really does point out what we've got. And as a manager, we got to make sure people understand what excellent performance is. What is it that is required to do the job, whether that's individual contribution or any other aspect of the business. And too many managers are willing to let this happen by accident. And we simply can't. You know, in track and field, the stopwatch is the bar. The stopwatch is the standard, and it does not lie. At the end of the track meet, they do not give awards for the person who tried the hardest, or the person who had the coolest matching outfit, or the person with the best effort. Those are great human interest stories, but that's not the bar. The bar, the standard, the expectation is a number which we must set, and as a manager, it's your job to create the expectations and set the bar. That's the first step to managerial success. The second step is then adjacent to the first step. You must evaluate activity against the standard. Okay, so if you've set the bar, you must then be observing and evaluating what are your people doing against what you expect. Now, even the world's greatest golfer, Tiger Woods, at the end of a round, if he did not score like he wanted or if he did not achieve his goals, he brings in a coach. And the coach stands there and observes the world's greatest athlete in golf and says, here's what you're doing wrong. Sometimes in store management, we're afraid to put ourselves in this position of coach, looking at and evaluating performance and say, I'm not happy with this. Here's the change. In this case, your grip is wrong. Or in this case, you've moved the ball too far back in your stance, or you're not bending your knees, or you're not following through. Now, if the world's greatest needs evaluation and needs a coach to tell us what to do, certainly it's what our store needs. It's what our staff needs. And when you see a poor performance in a retail store, I start with the manager. Has the manager created the standard? And is the manager actually evaluating the activity against that standard? And I'll tell you, the ability to observe behavior and evaluate and make changes is crucial to a successful store management. Now, we're great at looking at results. We're great at looking at the P&L, or we're looking at the UPT performance, or we're looking at the average transaction value performance. We're good at looking at the reports. What we may or not be good at is observing the activity that results in those reports. So I think we manage activity more than we manage results. And so it's important that we as managers observe and evaluate good activity to know what we need to do to improve. That brings us to the third secret to manager success. and that is identify the obstacles to excellent performance. Okay, why are we not getting what we want? Why is it that we're not achieving the goals we want? I've got a therapist here. You thought you were signing up for retail and didn't know you were going to be in psychology or therapy. But sure enough, the people that are successful learn how to listen. The managers that lead learn how to hear. They learn how to hear what's being said, what's not being said. And to identify the obstacles, sometimes you got to take some time to uncover with your people, what is it that I'm not seeing? What is it that I want? And so with the obstacles can be a variety of things. Obstacles could be a technology obstacle. It could be a product obstacle. But more often than not, the obstacle is internal. It's an attitude. It's a belief. It's a perspective. It's an assumption that causes that employee to, unfortunately, not achieve what we want them to achieve. Now, as I move to my fourth point, I want to remind you that we will be offering an opportunity for questions at the end, and there's a chat box for you to type in any questions. Feel free to do that at any time any questions come in, and we can keep track of them. But that brings me to my fourth step in the secrets to manager success, and that is securing buy-in from your team. That is, as described in the great book, Good to Great, getting everyone on the bus. This is very important in retail. Now, if it's rowing that we're talking about, you can quickly see people that are not on board. You've got people who are required to row in a certain time, in a certain way, and in a certain strength. What if one of these rowers suddenly decided, boy, my right arm hurts. I'm only going to row with my left arm for a few minutes. Or someone says, you know what? I'm going to turn around and ask this guy behind me what he thinks. I've got an opinion, and so I'm going to stop rowing for a second, just lean over my left shoulder and have a conversation. Or, you know what, I'm only going to row every third stroke because these guys have got this without me. I'm probably the weakest link. You know, if we began to see someone behaving that way in a rowing competition, we would spot it immediately, and we would know that that's our problem. Now, wouldn't it be nice in retail if we could see that we don't have buy-in from one of our people? Because what happens is we don't often spot that there's one person on board our retail team that doesn't fully agree with what we're doing, has a different opinion. They think, well, I don't really like this product. You know what, I don't really want to I don't want to greet and welcome every customer. You know, I really don't want to follow these procedures. And when you've got someone outside the framework of your expectation, you are going to get a decreased performance. You can quickly see it in rowing. You really need to be able to identify it as a store manager. Do you have buy-in from your full team? If you don't, you are being less than productive, less than effective, and it's a crucial step for managerial success. You must get buy-in from your team. That brings us to the next really important step, and that is selecting the ideal staff. You know, I'm sure everybody on the phone call here does a healthy amount of interviewing. The country's leading expert on selection is Dr. Jerry Bell, University of North Carolina. Dr. Bell says that only 8% of the population would qualify to work in a retail store. 8%. Now, if that's the case, 1 in 10 of the population is what we're looking for. And so if you're doing interviewing and selecting, it's a little bit like Where's Waldo? I know that they're out there, but where are they? Now, the first step to being successful in selecting the ideal staff is identifying or defining the ideal staff. Who are we looking for? What is their skill set? What are they going to be good at? Once we identify what we're looking for, it makes it a little easier for us in the selection process to identify the right people. This is a crucial skill for management. Building a right team, selecting the right team, and keeping them on the floor, retaining the right team. Selecting the ideal staff, key step number 5 in the secrets to manager success. That brings us to number 6. This is huge. Motivation and discipline. I love Tom Landry as the former coach of the Dallas Cowboys, and his quote, leadership is getting someone to do what they don't want to do in order to achieve what they want to achieve. Now, you know, every NFL and college football coach probably says the same things day in and day out. Run faster, block more, catch the ball, pass the ball. I mean, the skills for football are all the same. Why do some coaches get better results? It's here. It's in motivation and discipline. The discipline to work a little harder. The discipline to stay at it a little bit more. The discipline to make a little more of a sacrifice. And the motivation to try. the motivation to stay committed, the motivation to stay optimistic. Great retail managers understand the science of motivation and discipline. It is crucial that we're brilliant here, because that's what it takes to lead a successful team in a retail store. Number 7, and finally in the 7 secrets to manager success, communication effectiveness. This is the number 1 skill needed, in my opinion, for manager success. You must be a brilliant communicator. Too many managers are complaining, and since we're in the consulting business, we hear this all the time. They complain saying, I told that guy to clean the bathroom. I've told my staff to greet every customer. I told these folks to get out there and try to add additional products to their sale. Why won't they do it? Well, these managers have forgotten or failed to understand that what you say, the words you say, only make up 7% of overall communication. In addition to that, the effective communicator knows that 38% of communication is in tone of voice, 55% is in body language and the way and the approach that you take in communicating. When you look at it in context, communication effectiveness is more about what you say. It is more who you are. It is how we communicate. This is crucial. To be effective as a store manager, you must be effective at communicating. It's vital that we learn this. And we're very inspired by the story of the Solvay Conference of 1927. These scientists got together, physicists got together, to set a new standard for research and study, to raise the bar for how they would actually conduct their work and learn. At the conclusion of this conference that took place, there were 29 attendees. You can recognize some pretty brilliant faces in this group. But subsequent to this conference, 17 of these attendees were Nobel Prize winners. 17. What an amazing track record of success. And the secret for what happened at the Solvay Conference was twofold. Number 1, they raised the bar. They set new expectations. They set new standards. They set a higher level of what was required to be brilliant. And then collectively, this group of people gathered together, shared best practices, shared their ideas, and collectively left better than when they started. And we're really inspired by the Solvay Conference. If you take nothing else from this webinar today, go out from this session, go back out to the store and take a look. What standards need to be reset in your store? What new bar needs to be raised? Is it in timeliness? Is it in customer interaction? Is it in upsell and add-ons? Is it in store cleanliness and store maintenance? What is it that, is it in your performance of selecting the right person? Is it in your performance of tolerating poor behavior? In any way you can, raising the bar with a new expectation is the secret to future growth. And that's why the Mann Group has decided to create Mann University. And here's my 1-minute commercial before we get to question and answer. We're committed to leadership and profitability in your store, and we believe that resides with the store manager. We've got 5 sessions we're teaching over 3 days: leading with impact, motivating and leading as a player coach, the confident communicator, strategic leadership for results, and leading change in team building. Crucial that we tackle these things and that we refine our skill set so that we can be the best team leader we possibly can in a retail store. Now today we're going to offer anyone who attends this webinar a $250 discount for signing up for Mann U. We'll give you more details about that later, but I promised you a minute commercial, and I think I'm done. So back to our topic, and Kenny, I'm going to throw it back to you. If there are any questions, anything at all that that we can answer, we'd love to spend a few minutes with you answering your questions. So Kenny, I'll let you facilitate that.
Yeah, Dan, thanks. We got a couple of questions that did come in. The first one says, when you talked about motivating employees, the question is it really possible to know what motivates people?
Well, yeah, it is possible. And the way to do it is to listen. And if you've got some poor performance, you got something that's not happening properly, the strategy is sit down and have a conversation. Be unafraid to raise the issue. I'm not happy with the results I'm getting. I'd like to chat with you about it, and then hear what's being said. And if it's an obstacle that we can remove, that's the secret. I also think that you can almost break down motivation to a handful, a couple of key areas, though. And this one's been useful for me over time. I find that in the retail sales floor, there tends to be 2 types of primary motivations. One is achievement motivation, and the other is protective motivation. Now, achievement motivation, that's a person who likes the opportunity to set goals and achieve them. They like to succeed. They love getting results. They're the kind of staff you love to have. Protectively motivated people are doing just enough to keep their job. They're not doing any more. They're not doing any less. They're protectively keeping their job by doing just enough. You know, if you took a piece of paper out and pencil and wrote down every staff member right now, and you begin to say who's protectively motivated and who is achievement motivated, if your list is imbalanced, there's opportunity for improvement right there. Back to you, Kenny.
All right. Dan, I got another question. It says, can you expound upon the idea of communication effectiveness, particularly body language, time and place of communication?
Yeah, you know, that's a fantastic question, and we think this is important enough that it takes a full day of our 3-day workshop. We believe this is crucial. The confident communicator is a person who's moving toward communicating. And I do think that whoever asked this question raised a good issue, and that's time and place. So one aspect of communication effectiveness that I didn't raise in our 20 minutes here today is the person who you are communicating to. Are they ready to hear you? Are they in a position to understand what you're saying? Is there clarity? And as a communicator, one aspect of competent communication is understanding the environment in which you are speaking. Does the person want to hear you talk? Are they ready to hear you? Are they responsive? So, you know, communicating is like playing catch. You can throw it, but is the person receiving it? And are they happy to receive it? So I throw, and is the person catching? And so there is an awful lot here. It is the right environment. It is the right language. It is the right temperament. And it is in a receptive, open person to communicate with that's ready to hear you. This is a robust topic, one that we're really focused on. I do think that irritations, emotion, being rushed with time, being inappropriate in our location, those things will significantly and systematically reduce overall effectiveness. In fact, you'd be surprised at the long list of ways you can reduce your overall effective message simply by doing the wrong things. Even though you may say the right things, so many other aspects of communication surround it that you can't be effective. Great question. I wish I had more time to address it, but again, part of our topic for me and you.
Sounds good. That looks like all the questions we've got at the time, so that's going to end our presentation. But if you think of a question later you'd like us to answer, please feel free to contact me, and I'll be sending out an email after the seminar here, and you'll have my information handy. And actually, we got one question that someone just sent in. It says, where can the Man U dates be found? Any information about Man University can be found on our website. And also, when I send out the email, I'll put a link to that has the dates and a little bit more information as well. So again, we want to thank everyone today, and that's about it. Thanks, guys. Y'all have a great weekend and a great 4th of July.
Sure appreciate it.